In this lesson, I'm going to show you how to set up and animate cameras, use a stage object, and create a hardware render of your animation. Let me walk you through it. So let's create some cameras. I've saved my file as cameras01. And the first thing I'm going to do is head over to my storyboards and see what we're trying to make. So we've got this close-up shot, then we've got the mid shot, and then we've got this top-down reveal wide shot. So we need to create these three cameras. So head back into Cinema 4D, and if we head to the camera tab and select camera. Now if we toggle this button here, we're inside the actual camera and we can move around. So I'm going to turn the cloner off and center my design to the camera. And now I'm going to look for the first shot, which is going to be the close-up. Head back, let's have a look. Kind of selected this section here, so let's have a look at that. That's over here. See how that looks. So if you actually select on the fracture, you can zoom in inside the camera. I'm going to turn the cloner back on and just have a look. And we just want to position camera center to the object that we want to be close up on. I'm just going to see what that's doing. That could work, but maybe let's find something a bit more interesting. And turn the cloner off again. Have a look around. Let's try this here. So I'm going to center to the center points of the kind of segments here. So you can see the little arrow there. I'm going to position it maybe here. And if I go onto my camera, I'm actually going to change the focal length to something that's a little bit more flat and graphic. So that's going to zoom me quite close. So if I select on the fracture again and zoom out, but you can see that it's a lot more graphic. I think that's more interesting. Maybe a bit higher. You can actually play with the coordinates here as well. So if you select on the camera, go to coordinates, you can find a good angle. I think that works. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to have two aspect ratios. We're going to have something that's HD, so the full frame. And we're also going to be posting to Instagram. So I want to be able to create a square and see what is actually inside that square. So if I head to my splines here and select rectangle, I can put the rectangle inside the camera. And then with coordinates selected, I'm going to zero out all of the coordinates. And then I'll come out of the camera and just pause. In the four views here, I can see my rectangle's up here, which is centered to the camera. And what I want it to do is bring the rectangle down so I can see it inside the frame. So if I move on the Z axis, start seeing that come down, but I still can't see it in this frame here, and that's because it's too big. And now I can move this back a bit because I want the tops of the rectangle to touch the tops of the frame. So now I can see what's going to be inside my Instagram frame. Maybe come down a bit and just play that and see what happens. So I'm going to put this inside a null by pressing Ctrl G. So that's actually put a null in the same position of the camera. And I'm going to do that again. So we've got the camera here with the coordinates zeroed out. I'm going to make sure that the null above it also has the coordinates zeroed. And then I'm going to freeze these, which is going to zero these coordinates out. I'm going to label this Z position. And the reason being is now I can animate the position of the camera. without tying the camera to any keyframes. So I've got control of the position of the camera just with this null here, and we can make sure that that's centered. And I'm going to be using this to animate with. So my animation is going to be 7 seconds long. So I'm going to break this up into sections. So the first part of the animation, the close-up, will be 50 frames, so 2 seconds. Then the mid-shot will also be 50 frames, which is going to take us to 100 frames. And then the final reveal shot is going to be 75 frames. So I'll start by label this. I'm going to select on the Z position. I'm going to put a keyframe by selecting Control and making sure that I'm on my first frame of the animation. I'm going to scrub along to 50 frames, and I'm going to come out to -75. Let's try that. So what that's actually doing at the moment, it's easing out of the first keyframe and easing into the last keyframe. If we go to Window and Timeline Dope Sheet, you can see what's actually happening here. So it's easing out and easing in. Because I want this to be one seamless kind of shot, in the sense that I want all of the shots to kind of tie in at the same sort of velocity and, feel like one movement, I'm actually going to make these linear. So I can just select on the positions Z and press on this here, which is linear. So that's going to make that a straight line, so there's going to be no easing. So that's the first shot. So let's create a second camera. The same process, just select on camera, toggle inside it, use the fracture as a pivot point to move around it. I'm going to select this area over here, which is similar to our second frame that we illustrated. Just going to center up to the center of the circle. Could change angle a little bit if we wanted. So I'm going to toggle between these two shots just to see how wide I actually want to go for the mid shot. Just play that and see how that feels. So again, same process. I'm going to press Alt-G and group that, and then group that again. Got our Z position, and this is camera 2. Now I need to make sure that all of these zeroed out, so I'm going to select on the top null and freeze that. And then I can move my Z position. So I'll start at frame 50. I'm going to put a keyframe in at 0. And then I'm going to move a bit more. Actually, we need to make sure that in our camera, that is set to 135 frames. So that's all good. Let's move, say 450, see what happens. And again, we need to, at the moment, it's easing out of the first frame by default and easing into the last frame. You can actually change that so it's not easing linear by selecting Control D and heading to Key Interpolation and then selecting the interpolation to linear. But for now, because we've already made those keyframes, I'm just going to select both of them. And then here, I'm going to select a linear. So now we've got our second shot. So we're going to be going from the first shot to our second shot. That could be a touch faster actually, or we could move further on the Z axis. So I'm going to select that keyframe and just make it. Okay, so we've got two cameras in. And the same process again. going to turn the cloner off in order to center the camera to the whole of the final designs. So create a new camera, toggle it on, and then press S and position this so it fills the frame. And we can, selecting on the camera, I can zero out these coordinates, make that -90, 0, 0, 0, and actually zoom out. So if I zoom that out by 1920, nope. Select on that again. Okay, it's because we're actually above. So if I go to my 4 views, this camera is actually above the design. It's not on the Z axis. So that's why we need to be moving the Y position. So I'm just going to center this. And if I press Command V and go to view, I can actually take the opacity of the borders to 100% so I can see where it's clipping out. So maybe I'll start a little bit closer, just here. And again, I'm going to group this twice to put my camera in 2 nulls. And then make sure the coordinates are zeroed out. I'm going to freeze all of the top null, so they're 0. So now I can, using the Y position, using the Z again, I'm going to animate from maybe, we can start at 0, making sure that we're on frame 100. I'm going to put a keyframe in on the Z position, and then heading to a frame 175. Let's try -1000 and put a keyframe in there. And because we changed the interpolation of the project file, it should be linear now. So if I select on one of these keyframes, yep, it comes up as linear. So we won't have that easing. Cool. So if I extend the design by turning the cloner on, you'll see what we've got there. Actually, I kind of don't want to go beyond the actual original design. I think I want to finish around here. I'm going to select on the Z position and put a keyframe here. And I'm going to drag that to the end and overwrite that last keyframe. I might actually zoom in a touch more as well, just so our design doesn't go beyond the border. So if I just select on my second camera, I think this could be a bit faster. So I might actually start a touch closer.